Be strong.
Hey there, it's Peter again from Macanta for another mini live build. So just putting structure into an app of what the data objects and relationships could be. So today's example is for a manufacturing company who sell to other companies. So you've got a sales team selling to companies. There are manufacturing companies involved. Each buyer could buy more than once for different locations, so there's installation required, and then of course you also have service and maintenance for these installations. So let's have a look at what that would look like. So we'll go in, and as always we have our contacts, the human beings in the system, and then we have our data object types. So in this instance we'll have companies, installations, and services and inspections. And then we have our different relationships, and you can see that this, if not managed properly, can get complicated quite quickly, because we can have a key contact for a company and for an installation, because in this business we have like a parent company who makes the purchases, who own lots of locations where different installations would be. So I might have one key contact who I'm doing the deal with for the sale, but actually the key contact at an installation property at the site is different. And therefore, for the same way, the sales agent could have a relationship to the company they're selling to, but also to individuals at the site or installation where this work's going to be carried out or installed. We then have a site surveyor and an installation engineer who has relationships to the installations, and then we've got service engineers who would have a relationship to services and inspections, service visits that we have as our object. But it doesn't stop there. As we know, we can have relationships between one or more data objects. So here we can have a company who is the buyer, we have a company who is the manufacturer. Neither of them is the company who's doing the selling. If the manufacturing is outsourced, as example, then both the buyer and the manufacturer can have a relationship with more than one installation. And then each installation will have a series of services and inspections over the life of that installation. So we need to be able to track those things. And then, of course, if you remember from the previous slide, all the relationships map over to this as well. So it can very quickly become a bit of a spider's web for that. So let's jump into Macanta and we'll go and have a look at that. So first thing we're going to do is set up our relationships and data object types. So I'll go over here on the little cog wheel to the admin settings, and then we go over to object builder, and here I've got my contact object and my default 2 relationships. They're fine. I'm now going to add all the others. So what I tend to do in this instance is, once I know what the different the data object types are, we've got companies, installations, and service visits, I can then do the relationships for all of them in one go, at least as far as I know at this point, and then can carry on. So I can go in here and set up key contact. Now I don't need to create 2 key contact relationships, because I can have a key contact at a company and at an installation. We just use the one. The relationship and the data object combined allows us to drive the correct automation. So we'll save that. Then we'll add our sales agent. You can add descriptions here, and for speed I'm just leaving them blank for the moment. And we'll add in our surveyor, and make it site surveyor. We'll have an installation engineer, and a service engineer in this instance. Now, of course, in the real day-to-day of this business, the installation and one person could be the installation engineer and later the service engineer, but they are different relationships to different objects, even though the human contact is the same. So we're going to start at the top of our sort of hierarchy tree. We're going to start by creating our company. We just click on Create Object, and we'll give the data object a name of companies, and we always name these in plural. So a company could have a key contact, and it could have a sales agent. You could have other contacts, so you can have stakeholder as another relationship, depending on how complex your relationship towards a company is. But for the moment, we just go with who our key contact and our sales agent is. So now we can go over here onto sales agent, and on the right we can click on the pencil, and we can say, well, actually there should only ever be one sales agent on a company, on a sale, and we want to auto log the logged in user as that sales agent. And then for the key contact, we go and do the same. We can say one key contact, and it's the contact that we're logging in, building that relationship automatically when we create a new one manually. So now I can go in and say our fields. Now again, we're going to be very simple here. So this is just going to be company details, and we'll have overview. So here we're going to say we're going to want the company name as a text field, and then we can also say company type. And here we're going to go for a select, so I can choose, and we're going to say this is a client company, it's the manufacturer, it's the installer, service. So we can decide what kind of company is this that we're dealing with here, and we can just go and add that field. So we've got our two fields. We won't add anything else for the moment to these companies. We'll just start with those two key pieces. Go on to our display. We're going to have those in there. And what this table columns does is just when you're viewing the companies on a contact record, these are the fields that will be displayed. Obviously, I've chosen both because we only have two, but if you've got a company with 20 different fields, you can summarize and just pick the 5 most important ones. So we'll go and create that object, and then we'll move on to the next one, which will be our installations. So now I can go in here and I can say create the object. It's going to be installations, and in this instance we can have an installation engineer, we can have a key contact on site, and sales agent could be involved, and a site surveyor as example. And here what we're going to do, again, the sales agent is going to be limited to 1, and it's the logged in user will auto assign, and the key contact also limited to 1, and it's the contact will auto assign. The other ones we can leave as they are. We will have more than one engineer, we could have more than one surveyor, so we can leave those. So here we're now going to say installation ID, and this is actually I'm ahead of myself. First we're going to say installation details, name the section, then we're going to add a subsection, and this is going to be overview, and now we can add the fields, and we're going to say this is the installation ID, which we can use automation to auto-generate a unique ID for it, so we can have that there. And then we're going to say that we have the related client company, and I'm going to go for field type, I'm going to go all the way down and say data reference, and now I can go and choose the company name for that, and it'll become clear why we're doing that once we view the objects. But it's going to allow me to choose any companies I create in the system. I can choose then from this list. So we've got the client company, we can have that. We can go and add another field for the related manufacturer, because there's a company is manufacturing. I have contacts at that company, but depending on what you're manufacturing, but in this instance it's unlikely to be one individual I'm dealing with. So it's that company that has a relationship to it for the installation. So we've got our client company and we've got our manufacturer, and then we can also go in and say related installer company. So I can track these easy, and again we go for data reference and we choose the company name again. So that's what we'll have there for that, for our installations for the moment. And again, we can go in and go to the displays, and I'll choose all 4 again in this instance. So we can create that object. And then next up, we're going to choose our service visit. We're going to build our service object. So we'll go and create that. Here we can have a key contact, and we can have a service engineer for our example, and we'll have a sales agent in this example again. So we'll have the one, that's going to be the logged in user, and no, sorry, wrong one. That one's going to be the contact, not the logged in user, the key contact. The sales agent is going to be the logged in user. So there we go. And service engineer, we could have multiple, however that works out. So now we need to give it a name. So this is going to be service visits. You can add a section here to be service details. And here we're going to go overview. And again, I can do my fields. So I'm going to say this is going to be a service ID, which again we could auto-generate. It's going to be text. We're going to say related service company, so we know which company carried out the work. It's going to be company again. And we're also going to add the related installation ID, so we can link it back to a particular installation. We'll choose installation ID, and then we're just going to have the let's say here we're going to have the status of subsection called status, and we're going to go in and we're going to say this is the service status, and we're going to have a select option here, and we're going to say new booking, or let's say new request, scheduled, active, completed. Let's just have those as our options for the moment, and we're going to set our default to be new request, so that when a new request comes in I don't have to choose new request. Okay, so we can add that field in, and then we can say here we've got our request date for when we were contacted and asked to come out. Can add that in, and then we can here have our visit schedule. And here we'll choose date time, because we're going to arrive at a particular time. So that's how we can do that. We'll leave that there. You can go to our display settings. In this instance we are going to the service ID, the company, the status, request date, and the schedule. Related installation we can leave out of our headings for this example. So we go and create that object. So here we have our contact is by default. We have our companies, installations and service visits. So if I now go and look at a contact, let's go and look at my record. I've got those there. You can rearrange this so that it's in the order that you want it just by dragging and dropping those columns. We'll then rearrange those for you. So let's start putting some of this together the way we mapped it out before. So first what I'm going to do is just add a new contact. Sorry. Trusty Erwin. And we can go and save, and that'll take us straight through to Erwin. So let's go and add a company for Erwin. So we're going to add here, we're going to say this is Erwin's store, and he is a client company. So we can see here Erwin's been attached as the key contact, I'm attached as the sales agent, and I can go and save that. Okay, so that's our client company. So let's go and set up an additional company. That's my notification because I've been given a new relationship to a data object, so I get told about that. So let's go and add another contact. Here we go, and I can save that. So now I'm going to add a company for Martha. So I'll add this here, and we're going to say Martha's location. And let's say Martha is, I'm actually going to change that. Martha's going to be the manufacturer in this instance. And again, Martha's the key contact, I'm the agent by default. So we save that. And the impact of that is that if I go and look at my own record, go to companies, we can see both companies there, we can see what type of company they are, and then we can see my relationship and the other contact's relationship, and the same here, we can see Erwin has that relationship. Okay, so let's now go and add an installation for Erwin. So Erwin is our key contact at this company, at his store, and we're doing an installation for him. So I can go in here and let me just make sure. I'm going to need the client, the manufacturer, the installer. So let's add our installer first. So Olivia will do that for us. And we can go here. Save that. So now we'll add an installer company for Olivia, and this is installations, and it's an installer company, and again key contact agent auto assigned for those. Okay, so now I want to go to Erwin, and we're going to set up an installation for Erwin. So we'll add an item. I'm going to give that this an ID. I can now choose, here you can see I can choose the related client company. Now Olivia's not available there because I didn't sort of reload the contact, so it's in the background. So let's just go, and for the moment it's Erwin's store and Martha's manufacturing. We haven't assigned an installer here yet. Again, we can see Erwin's the key contact, I'm the sales agent, and we can go and save those details. And if I just go back and have a look at Olivia, make sure I did save that company, and go to Erwin. There's his installation. I should now be able to add Olivia to it as a reference for that company, and I can save that there. Okay, so what we have so far, we've got our contacts, and we have Erwin, who has this company, and you can see who the agent is. We can then also see under the installations, Erwin has that installation, and we can again see relationships. So I can now go and add another relationship here. So I can go in and I can add Amelie. So let's go and do it this way around. I can go in here, I can say connect another contact, and Amelie's not in here, so I'm going to go and create her. Save that contact, and then I can say it's going to be Amelie, and Amelie is an installation engineer. Okay, so Amelie's doing some of the installation for us, and then I can go and let's go and add another contact. I'm going to pick Sven Eric, and he's going to be our site surveyor. So now I can see on that installation everyone who's involved, and I can save that, and I can then go to my record here, and we can then see under companies I've got Olivia, Martha and Erwin's companies because I have sales agent relationship to that, and I have a relationship to this installation as well. So if we go back to Erwin, and we now go and set up a service visit for Erwin. So let me just see the ID and the related service company. So we're going to create a service ID. Again, we can do this through automation. I can choose one of these companies. We're just going to say it's Olivia's installation doing the servicing, but you could have a different company. Then the ID, you can now see we've got that installation ID is now an option to select. So every time we add a new installation, we'll have an option to select that. Already set to new request. And that request came in today. Again, we could use automation to auto set that to today's value when that request comes in, and then we're going to say we're actually going to be on site at 6:30 for that. And again, we can see here key contact and agent has been attached, and we can again go in and add another contact. We go and grab Olivia and say she's going to be a service engineer, connect and save that. Okay, so there's our service. So now we've finished the tree really. So if we now go and have a look, we now have Erwin's company, and we know who the key contact and the sales agent is at that company. And we know that we've done this installation for Erwin. I know that Martha did the manufacturing and Olivia did the installation. And I can also see who was the installation engineer, who was the site surveyor. And then when I go to service visits, I can then see that Olivia's company who did the installation did a service. It's a new request, and they're going to be there on the 17th at 6:30. And again, I've got my relationships of who's involved and how, and everything for that can be driving your automation. So that's really our plan that we had. We've got those. So if I now go and let's say I go and look at Olivia, for instance, then I can see Olivia's installation company. I can see that Olivia herself doesn't have a relationship to an installation, but her company had a link. And then on the service, Olivia here was the service engineer. So you can choose whether you want to have the engineer connected to the installation as well. And again, when you go to my record as the logged in user, I've got 3 companies, I've got the installation, and I'll have the service visit because I have a relationship to each of those. Excuse me. So for us, we've just used sales agent as that one relationship, but across a business, you obviously will have different relationships depending on what department's dealing with things and where that is. So yeah, so that's companies, installation, service visits, including setting up who's the related manufacturer, any of that stuff. So if you've got any questions, please let me know. More than happy to help with that. So yeah, I'll likely be back tomorrow with another example. I've got a couple lined up, so I'll pick one of those and come and show you that. But in the meantime, have a great evening, have a great day, ask any questions you want, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Be strong.